Good morning, all, and thank you for attending today's operator meeting. My name is Sienna, and I will be your host for today's meeting. As a reminder, all questions will be answered at the end of all presentations, but please feel free to put them into the chat as they come to you. Additionally, if you have any questions from previous operator meetings, please feel free to put those into the chat, and we'll try to answer them during this meeting, or someone will reach out to you. As a reminder, please do not ask any questions that are unrelated to this operator meeting or previous operator meetings. Thank you so much. First up, we have Greg. Go ahead and take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Sienna. Good morning, everybody. I'm Greg Duranlo. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations here at ECMC. Today, I'm just going to provide, I'm talking about two topics, but first, I'm going to talk about just a brief reminder to all that for to for help finding previous operator meeting archives. I guess I could just read what's on the screen there for me. Um, so this has been made much easier with our new website. From the homepage, just click on the forms and guidance in the main blue bar menu, where you'll find a button for guidance. Right at the top, you will find when you click that, right at the top, you'll find a button that says past meeting agendas, recordings, presentations, and associated documents. Click that, and you'll find a well-organized and comprehensive listing of our meetings by going back by year to 2017. You can search those topics using the search bar, and I just want to remind everyone, if you are looking at anything that is pre-mission change, make sure you look for a more recent version as well, because much has changed and much has been updated since then. But thanks to our web team, including Kristen Kemp and her colleagues, for improving access to the operator meetings archives. That's all I've got on that topic, Sienna.
Thank you so much, Greg. Next up is Lauren. Take it away.
Thank you, Sienna, and good morning, everybody. I'm Lauren Mercer-Gelman, Deputy Director for Policy, here to just give a brief update on our statutory alignment rulemaking. So here are the key dates. We wrapped up this rulemaking last Wednesday. The Commission voted to adopt the rules. So September 3rd is the rule adoption date. That means that if everything on the back end goes smoothly, which we anticipate it will, the rules will become effective October 30th of this year. So that's the date to prepare for. With the exception of the specific requirements for training and certification of welders working on flow lines are delayed in their effective date until July 1st, 2026. It was a relatively straightforward rulemaking in terms of participants. We had local governments engaged, quite a large industry presence, including the trades and individual operators, and just one ENGO, which was Earthworks. We called it statutory alignment because it tackled three different areas, all with the aim of bringing our rules up into alignment with recently enacted statutes. So those are worker enforcement, worker certification, and I've got a bucket of two things under other. So enforcement related changes were, like I said, in line with statute. First is clarifying that your Form 1 is your license to conduct operations in Colorado, and setting up the annual renewal of that license to operate via the Form 1B. So operators will file Form 1 as a new operator and annual 1Bs as you always have. But they will have sort of an extra significance now in being your license to operate. The rules, in line with statute, provide specific processes and circumstances under which a license to operate can be suspended or revoked. We also, in the rules, clarify the continuing violations doctrine, which relates to the change legislatively of the statute of limitations for violations of the act and the rules. Um, the legislation and the rules expand the circumstances under which a hearing in front of the commission is mandatory, and clarify a few things around cease and desist orders. So worker certification was the other big area. This was the last rulemaking assignment from SB 19181. So the rules in line with statute require certifications for certain categories of workers, those being compliance officers, workers handling hazardous materials, and welders working on flow lines. SB 181 was also very prescriptive about additional requirements for welders working on flow lines, requiring certain testing and training requirements that have now been incorporated into rules. Um, I see under other a typo on my slide that the definition of EnviroScreen was updated to EnviroScreen 2.0, so from 1.0 to 2.0. And we also adopted a rule to implement the marginal well fee that all operators are responsible for paying, which was set by the marginal well, or sorry, orphan well mitigation enterprise. So ECMC doesn't have the authority to set or change the fee. We just adopted a rule requiring folks to pay it. Um, Digging in a little more just so you can see the worker certification rule. This is Rule 602B, is where the most substantive changes from the rulemaking came in. This 602B3 specifies the types of workers who must maintain certifications. And again, these come straight from SB 181. Then, as I said, oops, hold on. Can you go back one slide, Sienna? I think I just lost control. Thank you. Oh, back up one, please. Thank you. These are the requirements for welders working on flow lines. They need to have knowledge of the flow line rules, and from statute a minimum of 7,000 hours of documented on-the-job training or work under someone with that amount of training. And the rule specifies how folks can demonstrate that they have that requisite training. And then they also have to pass the API Standard 1104 or ASME Section 9 qualification. Let's see if I can get to my next slide. Yes. So I've put some links in the presentation here. If you want to dig into the details, the best thing to do would be to click on that link for the adopted rules in SBP. It's only 13 pages of rule changes, most of which is black line with red lines showing the changes. So it's a fairly quick read. I also linked to the rulemaking docket and staff's presentations in the rulemaking, in case you have any questions. If you have questions that can't be answered by those materials, feel free to reach out to me. And I believe that is all I had.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Greg, you're up again. Take it away.
Good morning again, everyone. Greg Duranlo again. Today I'm going to be giving a longer presentation about Rule 437 and the list of prohibited chemicals. Um, and that's it. Uh, so there is a bit more to my presentation than that. Starting with Rule 437, the rule was effective January 15th, 2021, with other mission change rules, and simply states operators will not use the chemicals listed in Table 437.1 as additives in hydraulic fracturing fluid. The rule doesn't prevent operators from recycling or reusing produced water, that has naturally occurring trace amounts of chemicals listed in Table 437-1. It provides for any chemical constituent listed in that table, for which Table 915-1 also provides a standard. The concentrations in the recycled or reused produced water must be below the Table 915-1 standards or the unconcentrated naturally occurring background level, whichever is greater. So just to shed some light on that, if you're uh, if you're using recycled produced water as a base fluid for a frac, and it has a benzene concentration that exceeds Table 915-1, if you've got samples and can demonstrate that that exceedance that is, the naturally occurring concentration within the formation where the produced water came from, then that is acceptable use of water with that banned chemical in it as a base fluid. Again, that's as a base fluid, not as a chemical additive. Try and catch up. So the statement of basis and purpose provides additional insight into the intention of the prohibition. Just a reminder, the statement of basis and purpose is not a regulatory, you know, program, but is certainly useful for gaining better understanding of the rules. So the commission determined that it was necessary and reasonable to prohibit the use of the chemicals listed in Table 437-1 as fracturing fluid additives. And those chemicals pose a great risk to public health and the environment if spilled or released due to their high mobility and their persistence in the environment. The chemical prohibition only applies to chemical additives, as I already discussed, not the base fluids, to allow for the recycling and reuse of produced water. I described this, but the trace concentrations of the chemicals in the produced water source at similar concentrations are allowable in the recycled produced water when used downhole in a new hydraulic fracturing operation. The commission determined that the benefits of protecting public health, the environment, and drinking water supplies through the prohibition of these 22 chemicals was of paramount importance. The Table 437-1 lists the 22 prohibited chemicals, each with a unique Chemical Abstract Services number or CAS number, so there should be no ambiguity as to which chemicals we are talking about that are prohibited. In addition to Rule 437, the legislature also banned the use of PFAS products in oil and gas products. House Bill 22-1345, which modifies Title 25, Article 15, so not the Energy and Carbon Management Act, previously the Oil and Gas Conservation Act, but a different act applies to oil and gas operations with this prohibition. It was effective January 1st, 2024, and it prohibits the distribution for sale or use of oil and gas products that contain intentionally added PFAS chemicals. So really, it goes hand in hand with the prohibited chemicals listed in 437-1. I added this slide in here just to kind of show the process of chemical reporting and disclosure. So as you can see on the left, the Form 46, the process starts with the chemical manufacturer registering a chemical product using the Form 46. That information goes into the Colorado Oil and Gas Information System, the COGIS database. Meanwhile, the oil and gas operator begins their hydraulic fracturing operation. Following the frac, the oil and gas operator submits their Form 46A, their chemical disclosure report. Again, that information, that report draws from COGIS and then reports to COGIS. From that Form 46A, COGIS develops and delivers back to the operator the chemical disclosure list. The operator provides that to the general public in the vicinity of the oil and gas operations as required by rule. And at the same time, that information is published to our website. Therefore, that's sort of the first time that ECMC or anyone else has visibility to this process and to what was reported. So at that time, ECMC can ask, were banned chemicals used in this hydraulic fracturing process? If no, that's the end of it. If yes, we are issuing NOAVs, notice of alleged violation, to operators at that time. So the information that I'll present here was presented to the commission by Director Murphy last week. You're welcome to review the YouTube channel if you missed it, and she went into more detail than I will go into here. ECMC in July of 2025, ECMC issued 4 NOAVs to operators for reporting the use of prohibited chemicals. 3 of those are closed or dismissed. They essentially, the chemical that was reported on the 46A had been incorrectly reported by the as an ingredient by the chemical manufacturer on the Form 46. So the Form 46s were modified to correctly report the chemical that was intended to be reported, and therefore it was found that the banned chemical was not in fact used. The last of those NOAVs is being resolved through the enforcement process. In August 2025, ECMC staff identified an additional 54 instances of the use of prohibited chemicals in hydraulic fracturing. The most common of these were 1,4-dioxane and 2-butoxyethanol. These are being referred to enforcement as we speak. Again, just shows the chemicals that we found were used in these. The 1,4-dioxane made up about 2/3 of the reported use of banned chemicals, and the 2-butoxyethanol were the remaining. I do want to close with some good news on chemical reporting. As you should be aware, House Bill 22-1348, which required chemical disclosure in oil and gas operations, modified the Energy and Carbon Management Act, was effective July 23rd of 2023. Obviously, you should all be aware that it took a while longer than that for ECMC to implement with the forms development, et cetera. But at this point, we are fully functional with the implementation of that rule. Requires the manufacturers to register and operators to disclose all chemicals used in downhole production operations, specifically focusing on hydraulic fracturing. In May of 2025, there was a 39% compliance with chemical disclosure reporting requirements of House Bill 22-1348. In July, after outreach, several warning letters were issued. ECMC reviewed the data and found 89% compliance with the rule. And in August, we again reviewed and found 97% compliance. Note, compliance with the chemical disclosure requirements does not exempt you from compliance with the prohibited chemicals rules. So I encourage you to carefully review the chemical products you plan to use prior to their use. Discuss with your chemical suppliers and make sure they are not selling you products with banned ingredients. And at this time, that's all I have on this topic.
Thank you so much, Greg. Next up, we have Nikki. Go ahead and take it away.
Hi, I'm Nikki Graber. I am the DJ Basin Environmental Supervisor, and I'm here with a quick Form 27 process update. We have recently implemented changes to Form 27 supplementals. There is no change to initials regarding this. All tabs will now default to off, with the exception of attach, submit, and review, which are tabs that don't carry over language from the previous form. This adjustment was made to streamline the review process. Previously, with the tabs defaulting to on, it was difficult to identify what had changed from form to form, and this was leading to staff putting unnecessary review time on previously approved language. So now, when you create a new Form 27 supplemental, all input fields will be grayed out, as you can see in this screen, and they're uneditable until you enable modification. So that's the tab that you see circled up on top. Um, when you enable it, you will receive a warning letter that says choosing to continue will allow you to make changes. Be aware, however, once you enable modification of this tab, you cannot turn it off again. The screenshot here is older. That language will update later today. Um, at that point, if you click yes, you will be able to edit that tab. At that point, the only way to revert back to no change is to exit the form without saving, so be very wary when you do this. If you do try to revert to no change, you will see the error that I have screenshot in the bottom right. You can't change the content status back to change. Um, so when you're using this, please only turn on what you actually need to change. And please remember that any information changed needs to be consistent across all fields, even if they're grayed out. So please don't put something like an analyte reduction in the operator comments while leaving the previous sampling plan in a turned off tab. Staff can't approve conflicting language like that. Um, but overall, we really do anticipate this new process will improve submittal and review times and reduce questions about carryover language. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Next up, Andrew, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Andrew Stone. I'm part of the planning and permitting team. Today, I just want to give a quick refresher on what we're looking for when reporting logs on a Form 5 drilling completion report. This information can also be found on our website within a document titled Reporting Logs Run, which is within our Form 5 instructions. So there are two places on the Form 5 that we require logging information. The first is on the drilling tab. Here you will list all of the logs that were run on the well. This box is what populates the scout card with the log types. The main thing we're looking for in this box is that the correct abbreviations are being used, as this ensures consistency across our database. Please don't use OHL for open hole logs and do not include the logged depth interval or file format type of your logs. If you're unsure what any of the log type abbreviations are, they're listed here and in the reporting logs run document I mentioned earlier. The other piece we are looking for in this box is any alternative logs that were run. So if no open hole logs were run on this particular well, but were run on another well on the same pad, include the type of log and the IPI number for that well. And same if you have no open hole logs that were run on any well on the same pad and there was a nearby log that meets the alternative logging requirements. We just in parentheses want to see that after the list of logs that were run on that particular well. This information is important because it populates the scout card, which makes it easier for anyone looking for the open hole log to find it without having to open all the scout cards for the entire pad. The second place we require logging information on the Form 5 is the comment box on the Submit tab. Here we want to see the specific logging program or exception being used for the well. You don't have to list the logs on the Submit tab. Here is a list of standardized comments and information we'd like to see. So if an alternative logging program was used and no open hole logs were run, include the comment no logging or alternative logging program, no open hole logs were run. And similarly, if there was an open hole logging exception, we would like that commented out as well. If a well was used to satisfy the requirements, that well name, number, log type, and API should be listed here as well. In the rare case you are submitting a Form 5 for a well that was permitted prior to December 2013 without a COA or BMP on the approved permit, you can use the comment shown here. So to conclude, the main things we are looking for when reporting logs is that any alternative logs are listed in parentheses on the drilling tab, along with the logs run for that well, and that the specific logging program or exception for the well is clearly stated on the Submit tab. And that's all I had. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It looks like we just have one question at the moment. First question is, how can an operator verify the vendor correctly registered their chemicals via Form 46 prior to conducting operations and submitting a 46A?
Thanks for that question, Jessica. So I would strongly suggest proactively, and sorry, this is Greg Duranlo. I would strongly suggest proactively reaching out to your chemical manufacturers and discuss their registrations with them. Have them confirm to you that they have properly registered the chemicals and that they do not contain banned chemical constituents. ECMC regulates oil and gas operations and can only measure compliance for oil and gas operators. So that's where our sort of buck stops. The additional, I guess I just wanted to acknowledge that based on this, ECMC is planning proactive outreach to all currently registered chemical manufacturers with a reminder about Rule 437 and Table 437-1 this week. So that will hopefully help as well. Okay, and Julie, you return to the question that you asked earlier about the prior operator meeting topics. So the topics, ECMC, we acknowledge that the topics are listed out in 2025 and not in prior years. We will work to update prior years with similar topic lists. It's a bit of a tedious task, so it may take some time. And it may not be possible to capture all topics and updates if the topics were added and presented in an ad hoc basis at an operator meeting. But we will work to include that sort of helpful listing out. So thanks for that suggestion.
Thank you, Greg, for answering those questions. Are there any last minute questions? If so, please put them in the chat. All right, all appears that no one else has any additional questions. As a reminder, the information for the operator slides will be uploaded to our website by the end of the week. If you want to be added to the operator list, please reach out to me and I will make sure you're added. Thank you so much for attending today's operator meeting and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.